when you are seeing states like Tennessee want to wipe out every Black representative on the map in these states, we have an obligation as Americans to stand with Black Americans and communities whose representation is being disenfranchised.
So now that Tennessee Governor Bill Lee signed off on the new congressional districts, what's next?
There will be a lawsuit in state court. I'll be a plaintiff, among others. If that's effective, Congress District 9, as it's been known, a majority-minority district, will continue till 2028.
Secede from the state of Tennessee now. Let's get our attorneys and let's get them together and let's start looking at how we can begin this conversation and start making a move to disassociate ourselves with such an entity that mistreats our people.
Lawsuits, seceding from Tennessee and mobilizing the vote. Which one of these things can happen and which one stands the most chance?
Secede from Tennessee? Come on, man, that's not going to happen. I'm going to assume that Representative Parkinson was speaking out of emotion, and I'll just leave it at that. But seceding ain't it.
Lawsuits will have a chance, absolutely. Otherwise, why even bother go to court? Yes, they do have a chance. And as far as secession is concerned, I don't.
Steve Cohen just signed a paper asking to be removed from the ballot, not voted out, not pushed out by a scandal. He signed the paper and walked away. 20 years in office. The only sitting Democrat in Tennessee with any realistic shot at holding a congressional seat, and he quit before the fight even started. His exit doesn't just end his career, it hands Republicans a clean sweep. Every single district in Tennessee goes red, and the Democrats' last real hope of flipping any one seat is gone, done, off the table. So let's call it what it is. This is a white flag. He looked at the new map, ran the numbers, and decided the fight wasn't worth having. By the end of the video, you'll understand exactly why his brand of politics was always living on borrowed time, and why the map change just forced the honest moment. So let's check out him waving the white flag.
It's noon Central Time. This is by far the most difficult moment I've had as an elected official. I signed a paper that I will send to Nashville for noon Central Time as the deadline, stating that I do request not to be on the ballot, which otherwise, if I didn't make the statement, they would keep me on the ballot in the 9th District. And the 9th District that they have under these new lines is nothing like the 9th District that I've represented. The district that we have, it will still be the district at least till January, and possibly if we win the lawsuit, is compact, which is what you're taught in civics classes, is that redistricting should be compact districts, and districts where the people in it have a commonality of purpose and interest. And that district does. And because of the fact that it's majority Black and the white constituents there too, doesn't mean that they don't have the same interests. They have the same interests: the future of Memphis economically, health care for people in Memphis, whether they're Black or white, fairness for women to have a right to choose, fairness for gays and lesbians to have rights to marry and to live without persecution. There are all kinds of issues about jobs and job training and education. And I've been blessed to be, and I don't want to quit. I'm not a quitter. But these districts were drawn to beat me. They were drawn to defeat me.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you. What was the name of the mortician?
Well, there you have it, family. Okay, so let's start with what actually happened, because redistricting sounds complicated, but it really isn't once you break it down in plain English. I like to break it down just so you guys and we got to understand it. Republicans in Tennessee withdrew the congressional map. They took the old 9th district, which was compact, Memphis centered, a majority Black, and they broke it apart. Those voters didn't disappear. They got spread out across multiple districts that already lean Republican. So instead of one concentrated district where those voters could elect their own representative, you now have several districts where they're a smaller slice of a much larger, more conservative pie. The new 9th district that Cohen would have had to run isn't anything like the one he spent 20 years representing. It stretches out into rural Tennessee, whiter, more conservative, and much less familiar territory for a politician who built his entire identity around one Pacific community in Memphis. Now, here's the part worth paying attention to. Cohen didn't lose a primary. Nobody beat him. There was no scandal, no ethics violation, nothing like that. He looked at the new map, decided he couldn't win, and pulled himself off the ballot entirely. He literally signed paperwork to make sure his own name wouldn't appear. That's not a guy who got knocked out. That's a guy who saw the punch coming and left the building. He did mention a lawsuit. He said he'll be a plaintiff in a legal challenge, hoping the old district lines survive in court and the old ninth stays intact through 2028. Maybe that works. But notice that he's not waiting around to find out. He's already out. If he actually believed the lawsuit will restore his district, a 20-year incumbent would stay on the ballot and let the court sort it out. The fact that he didn't tells you everything about his real confidence level. So the obvious question is, why can't he just go campaign to the new voters? He's been in Congress for 2 decades. He has name recognition, resources, and experience. Why does moving the district lines make him unelectable overnight? The question is the whole story, because the honest answer has nothing to do with the map. But I want you guys to check out this next clip.
We're talking about Sharia law. I mean, this is not really relevant to this committee and what's going on in America today. There's so much we could be dealing with concerning the Constitution and protecting America. White Christian nationalist ideology has been put forward. One of the gentlemen here said something about, what was it, the certain, it might have been you, Mr. Spencer, something that the group put forward as their plan for the future, some publication or some ideology. Did you mention that?
I don't know, you might be referring to the explanatory memorandum, which is, I didn't mention, but it's a captured internal document of the Muslim Brotherhood detailing its program for the United States, where it says the brothers must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their own hands and the hands of the believers, so that Allah's religion is victorious over other religions.
Right, that's
I would
pretty much
suggest that just saying that we got other
sir,
problems
I've got the floor.
doesn't make that one go
Sir,
away.
I've got the floor. You're not Pam Bondi.
Sorry?
I say, I've got the floor. You're not Pam Bondi. You know, really. That's what I was getting at. And what you're talking about sounds like a Middle Eastern version of Project 2025, another type of manifesto to take over and do all these things and to control our government and to turn it around on its head. We need people working in the front lines and local law enforcement to protect our citizens from the worst of the worst. The worst of the worst are not the immigrants. The worst of the worst, records show, are native-born Americans, and they are committing crimes that hurt our citizens and our cities, and you're working against it, and thank you for that. But by trying to get our local law enforcement, where we have an undercount of officers in Memphis, to leave Memphis and go to work for ICE to deport people is a wrong priority.
Well, there you have it, family. Here's the thing about Steve Cohen that the map change just made impossible to ignore. He didn't build a broad coalition over 20 years. He built a very specific product for a very specific room, and that product does not travel. Steve Cohen is a white Democrat who won and held a majority black district by running hard on racial grievance politics and progressive causes that played well inside Memphis. That was his formula. It worked. It kept him getting reelected because the voters in that Pacific district responded to that Pacific message. Fine. But there's a cost to that strategy that only shows up when the conditions change. He went on the House floor, as you guys seen, and pushed white Christian nationalist ideology, quote unquote, as a framing for a political opposition. He dismissed immigration enforcement concerns and argued against local law enforcement cooperating with ICE. Those were his positions stated publicly on the record. And again, inside his old district, that brand kept him in office. But the moment you take that message into rural Tennessee, into Fayette County, into McNairy County, and to communities that don't share those assumptions, you don't have a pitch anymore. You have a problem. Think about it this way. If you spend 20 years telling one group of people that another group of people is the source of their problems, you cannot walk into a room full of that second group and ask them to vote for you. You already told them exactly what you think of them. There's no version of that conversation that ends with you winning their support. You built the trap and then you walked into it. This is what identity-based politics actually does. And if you want another form of identity politics and what it actually does, I am glad to show you what this young man or this gentleman, Justin Pearson, Mr. Pearson, in regards of him being a Tennessee Democrat, um, he won't seek re-election, Steve Cohen. So this man is the one that is the front runner because Steve Cohen just dropped out, as you guys seen, with his whole political argument and his position and his framework that I just broke down. So who is to challenge Steve Cohen in the primary? Well, it would be him, but since Steve Cohen dropped out, obviously you are about to see Justin Pearson running the same similar framework in a way, and obviously is going to be the primary front runner because Steve Cohen can't debate him because he dropped out willingly.
We demand justice, equality, and fairness in Shelby County, Fayette County, McNair County, Williamson County. Make it 15, 16, 17 counties, it don't matter.
So you aren't just going to be campaigning in Shelby County or in District 9, the former District 9. So what is your strategy now as you follow along this new District 9?
Absolutely. We have to go everywhere. I mean, one of the favorite compliments that I get from our current campaign is we're everywhere because we've had roughly 250 events and community engagements that we've been to. We've met with thousands of voters across Memphis and Shelby County up to Millington, all the way up to Covington, making sure that our message gets to people that it's about us. It's time for new energy, a new vision, and a new direction. And this is now an opportunity for us to do and campaign in Orange Mound, in Hickory Hill, in Whitehaven, but it's also an opportunity to go into Fayette County, into McNair County with the same message.
You know, some people have labeled you as a very left Democrat. So how, you know, that seemingly seems like an uphill battle when you do get into those rural counties. So how do you feel like Republicans in those very red areas will take you as far as your stances on the Democratic side? Would you say you're a very leftist Democrat?
No, I'm a progressive and a pragmatic, principled person. My faith guides the decisions that I make, and I'm happy and proud about that. I do believe that everybody deserves health care, and if you think that's too leftist, okay, I think everybody needs to have an increase to their wages. If we don't cap the wages for these billionaires, we need to make sure that the people who are at the bottom and working in these companies actually have their wages lifted up.
Well, there you have it. So, with that being said, and if you want another form of what I mean by the identity politics, I'm willing to show you.
Justin J. Pearson, and I'm running for president of BSG. There are a few reasons that we're running this campaign this year. One has to do with representation. How can we represent all voices in a conversation? I wanted to do this by partnering with organizations from the Bowdoin Democrats to the Bowdoin Republicans. I want to bring together different voices, dissenting voices, voices that may be more liberal or more conservative, in order that we can reach a point of sort of the radical middle.
Here, you've had 3 strikes laws, mass incarceration, denied us of who we are, and we are still here. And today, you'll take the only majority black district from us. But I want you to know, and I want my nephew, sons, and the future to know, no matter what you do, no matter how much you try and break us and make us bend and make us quit, we will still be here.
There you have it, family. So, identity politics. This is what identity politics from Steve Cohen. And now you see the younger version of this gentleman who is going to be in the primary. I believe he's going to be the front runner of the primary because Steve Cohen dropped out. So he's going to win the primary most likely. Maybe so, if so, to debate a Republican. But it feels like a winning formula. Is my point, right up until the demographic math shifts, right? Going all the way back to Steve Cohen. Identity politics, this is what it actually does when you follow it to the end of the road. It feels like a winning formula right up to the demographic math shifts. And then you have nothing left to offer anyone outside the original room. The message that kept this man, that was the message that kept him safe for 20 years on the screen. It's the exact same message that makes you unelectable the moment the walls move. Now, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting because Cohen was actually the moderate option. The candidate Most likely to replace him in the primary is Justin Pearson, who is further left, more vocal, and has a record of even more divisive rhetoric that I showed you guys from 2 examples on 2 clips before coming back to showing you here, seeing Steve Cohen holding the KFC chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken. But now that you've seen Justin Pearson, Pearson has already said he plans to take his message into Fayette County and McNairy County. You heard that. If Steve Cohen, a 20-year incumbent with name recognition and resources, looked at the new map and said, I can't win this, what exactly does Justin Pearson think is going to happen when he walks into those same rural counties with a more radical record and less political experience? If the more moderate guy waved the white flag, the math doesn't suddenly improve for the more extreme candidate. This isn't just a Democrat problem in Tennessee. Radical rhetoric isn't just a moral question. It's a strategic dead end. It locks you into one room, and the moment those walls shift, your entire career gets exposed for what it always was. Before Republicans pop the champagne, there's something worth understanding about what this redistricting move actually costs them, because nothing in politics is free. When you redraw a map to dilute a concentrated blue district and you don't make those Democratic voters disappear, you absorb them into districts that were previously deep red. You're spreading them around, which means those safe seats got a little less safe, right? If Democratic turnout spikes in the next cycle, and if Democrats find a candidate who can actually speak the language of rural Tennessee voters, some of those newly drawn red districts become more competitive in ways they never were before, right? That's the gamble Republicans are taking with this move. And it just neutralized because now we're being not divisive, but we're actually focusing on the people no matter what race, which is important. Removing a divisive rhetoric. Now, when you look at that and you see Justin Pearson is almost certain to be the Democrat candidate for the new 9th district, and his record isn't exactly built for crossover appeal into conservative counties, the party had a chance to put forward someone who could actually compete in the new terrain. Instead, they're running the most left-leaning candidate they have in the most hostile territory possible. That's not a strategy. That's what happens when a party has spent so long rewarding its loudest voices, so that it forgot to build candidates who can win outside of safe districts and connect with the people and actually be for the people. So if you zoom out for a second, because Tennessee isn't the only place this story is playing out, the Democrats who are actually holding seats in the districts, tough districts right now, the ones who are surviving in competitive terrain, aren't the ones leading with cultural grievance. They are the ones talking about grocery bills, hospital costs, whether your kid could get a job after school, kitchen table issues, right? That's what they claim under the guise of affordability. They talk about to basically try to appeal to two people at once, which I mean by the two groups, right? Because if you walked into the trap of divisive rhetoric, the only way you're going to be able to appeal to the conservative group is trying to talk to the second group that you already told the first group was the enemy, by trying to under the guise of affordability to try to resonate, right? So can the Democrat Party candidates walk into a room full of voters who don't agree with them on everything and still make a case? That's a real coalition. That's something you actually build. And the accountability moment here is simple. The voters in these new districts didn't change. They didn't move. The lines just shifted. And now certain politicians are being asked to earn support from people they spent years ignoring or talking down to. And some politicians rise to that challenge. Steve Cohen decided it wasn't worth attempting. 20 years in office, when the moment came to actually compete on a level playing field, he filed the paperwork to walk away. That's not bad luck. That's a bill coming due on 2 decades of playing it safe inside a protected room. So I want to close with this. When your politics only work inside a bubble, you're not building a coalition. You're renting one. And eventually the lease runs out. And the most telling part of this whole story isn't that Cohen quit. It's that the one Democrat with any realistic shot looked at the fight and decided it wasn't worth having. That says everything. Drop the comments. Do you think Justin Pearson can actually win in the new district, or is Tennessee going all red? Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next breakdown, and catch you the next one. On that note, family, peace.